So there's this book called El Eternauta. I don't think that has a direct translation. It's just Ether from Eterno and Naut, for like traveler or something. It's an Argentinian novel and comic book from 1957 to 1959. So yeah, it's old and it's regarded as a kind of a classic in Argentinian literature. And it's science fiction, and it's one of those books that every Argentinian heard about, but actually nobody really read. Like, it's like those people telling you that you have to read 1984, but they actually never read it. It's like that. I was very bored last week. I had to take care of my sister's dog in her house while she wasn't home. I offered myself to go there and be there for just for the dog, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have my PC with me or anything, so I figured I might just read a book or listen to an audiobook, which is something that I do sometimes. So I chose Eternauta, and yeah, I spent many hours just listening to it, and I did not like it. Some things are flaws, and other things are just weird. It's just doesn't make much sense to me. I don't read many books, to be honest. The reality is that I don't really have a formed opinion of these things, so I'm just a casual reader. I'm just giving my own opinion on it. The story is about an alien invasion, and while I don't have anything against these stories, in fact, I kind of like them. It's not something I obsess over, right? I don't dislike the idea. Whenever I am told that the story is about that, I'm like, I mean, it doesn't put me off. That's all I want to say. It's not a bad thing for me, per se. But I don't think this story does this in a very good way. I don't know. In the beginning of the story, there are it's a couple with their daughter and 4 or 3 friends of the father. They are gathering in one of their houses. They are chilling. It's all normal. It's a normal day. They start to play a game called Truco. It's an Argentinian game. I don't know if it's Argentinian, to be honest. Maybe it's not, but it's played a lot in Argentina. And everything starts like normal, fine, nothing wrong in the story so far. But then they start noticing that it's snowing, and it's snowing a lot. And that's weird because it doesn't really snow in Buenos Aires, which is the city where this story takes place. I mean, it does snow, but very rarely. It's not common at all. If it happens, it's a phenomenon. It's not normal at all. But yeah, it starts snowing, and they are very impressed by this. They approach the windows, they watch outside, and they see that people are dying. They hear a car crash, but they just see a lot of dead people everywhere. Everyone's dying outside. Pretty dark. They figure that the snow is killing the people, right? Because it's very weird. It's something that doesn't really happen in Buenos Aires, and people are also dying. So they suspect it's some form of radioactive snow or something killing the people. Whatever. The first thing that I didn't like about the story happens here, right here in the beginning of the story, right before they have time to react. I mean, they are inside a house. They are lucky that everything is closed and there are no windows or doors open, so they, by mere chance, get to survive and watch the catastrophe outside. And the first thing that crosses the main character's mind is, quote, wait, if everyone's dying, then that means that the Argentinian football team is also dead. They are no more. And at that moment, I started to think that this story doesn't take itself seriously. It's what are you talking about? What about your relatives? What about your friends? Everyone that you know. How come that the first thing you think about it's the Argentinian football team? You can tell this was written by an Argentinian. To me, I have no offense. I don't hate this country or anything. I like it, actually. I live here and I don't plan on living this country. It's not like I am a hater or anything, but come on, it's so weird. who thinks like that when everyone's dying? It doesn't compute to me. It's weird. And the second thing, this might be more like a nitpick, but the main character is called Juan, by the way. Juan Salvos, I think. So I will be referring to him as Juan. Right after he asked himself the football team question, he starts describing the snow, right? It's just snow. He says that there's a lot of snow. It just looks like snow, and there's a lot of it. Everything is being covered in white. He says it's just like in those cartoons, he says. Like, that's pretty much all he has to say about it. He says it's like in those cartoons. And I'm like, what do you mean, like in those cartoons? I mean, of course, I know what he means, right? What's happening here is that since it doesn't really snow here often or at all, almost never, the only reference that we have about snow when we grow up is from other media, right? From other countries, like from movies or American cartoons, something like that. I mean, there are many places with snow in Argentina, just not in Buenos Aires. They are all far from Buenos Aires. It's a very big country, and Buenos Aires has no snow. And that's where half of the population lives. And since Juan, and by extension, I think the author of the book, never saw snow, their only reference is from cartoons. And even though I understand that it sounds very silly, a cultured person knows better than that, right? Knows better than to compare snow just with cartoons. I don't know. I did nothing else. Again, this is the least bad thing about the book, right? It's a nitpick. I admit it's a nitpick because this could be just that, and the rest of the book may be amazing. But in reality, this was a pattern. This was not an isolated case. For instance, there's another thing that I think it's a bit related to this, with this disconnection with the world, and that is the way the main character talks about the places. He announces the places where they are going, but he doesn't describe them. To understand what I am talking about, shortly after the snow, some moments after it starts snowing, actually a couple of days, I think, the house is visited by a group of soldiers, right? They are recruiting people, militia, basically. They are planning to attack the capital because apparently that's where the invaders landed, right? Because the main characters saw some lights that might have been spaceships that were landing in the center of the city. So some soldiers were trying to find survivors and give them weapons and be part of a small army to get there. They give numbers. The army consists of approximately 500 civilians mostly. There were some actual soldiers there, but most of them were civilians with weapons, including the main characters. And most of the story takes place in this campaign, right? Almost everything about the story is the main character telling us the path with this small army kind of stuff towards the capital to reconquer, right, the city, to save the city, basically. So you have to think about this. If he goes saying, right, then we turned left, then we crossed X street, then we went through this avenue, and then we crossed the corner that is between X and Y streets. He literally says that. He doesn't tell you how the streets look like. He doesn't talk about the dimensions of the streets, of the sizes, or why they are choosing those streets to begin with. It's something that serves no meaning at all unless you live there, because if you live in Buenos Aires, you will know probably where they are going and why. But if you don't live there, if you're not familiar with the infrastructure of the city, you will have no idea why the character is even saying this. It makes no sense. Why are you saying we cross this street, then that street, then I mean, giving you names, right? Why are you saying that? It doesn't make any sense. We cross Córdoba, then Maipú, then 9 de Julio. Then, why? I mean, if I don't live in the city, I mean, I understand because I worked in the city for some years, but not all of the streets actually. I mean, I understood some of the places, but not all of them, to be honest. Imagine someone that hasn't even been there. They won't have any clue about where they are. So this is one problem. This is one thing that I think it's just bad, that instead of describing the places, he just announces them. He says, we are in this place, then in that, then in that, then in the. To be honest, to me, that just makes no sense. To me, that means that the author put more effort in writing shallow references rather than an interesting story, to be honest. And I would divide my review into parts. One would be everything I said up until this point, and another would be everything that I'm going to say right now. This is the other big thing that I didn't like about the story. It's that no matter how many things the aliens throw to this small group of 500 armed civilians, they just cannot get them. They cannot win. The aliens are just hopeless. I mean, the first thing the army sees about the aliens is just it's some group of bugs. I mean, human-sized bugs, maybe not anthropomorphic, just the size, the height, something like that, and a laser gun, something like that, a ray gun, scarabs. Let's call them scarabs. At first, this laser gun was very dangerous. It destroyed 2 tanks, I think. They were like, "Oh, then what are we going to do? We can't do anything against this." But they managed to spot where the laser is coming from. They are all in the open. They give the sign, the radio, etc., etc. So they managed to bomb the hell out of the scarabs and everything. They are all destroyed. Then more scarabs attack, like fly to the group, and the group just shoots all of them. Easy. Nobody dies, I think. Maybe just some few people, but the scarabs are very weak. They even say this. Scarabs are weak to bullets. This is what I don't like. I mean, it gets worse, but already at this point I was like, come on, an alien invasion comes to Earth, and I mean, they are weak to our bullets. What is this? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. The story goes on. They decide that the River Stadium is a good strategic point. I can't remember why exactly, to be honest. They decide to take it. There are a lot of scarabs there inside, but still they kill them. They get rid of all the scarabs. Once they are inside, all the humans start hallucinating. They start seeing scarabs where they actually aren't any. They see enemies where they're not. They are going crazy, and one of them manages to spot a weird cloud in the sky, not very far from them, and he thinks maybe there's something in the sky that is making us have this hallucination. So he just grabs an anti-air gun, boom, it's gone. Easy, cake. Nothing happened. Nobody died again. So they continue walking, and they see man robots. They call them man robots. They just call robot men. It's just humans that were captured and put some sort of collar with something that goes to their brains, so they are being manipulated by the invaders. But it's also not a big problem because they are easily killed. They have bad aim. The main character Juan says this, that they are just easy, not a real very big threat because they are bad with weapons. So it's whatever. They keep going and going and going and going, and then the main character, along with one of his friends, the two of them were going like doing some recon thing, right? So they get captured and they are sent to what they believe is the headmaster of the invasion, and this a human-like creature, very athletic, but with like 10 fingers in every hand, a bit weird, and very intelligent, something like that. And this creature captures the two main characters. They put them in two chairs. They are tied to the chairs, and this alien talks to them. Right? He says that they are going to be modified because they are very smart humans and they need smart slaves, so they are going to be put something in their brains, just like a robot man, but in a different manner. It doesn't really matter. The main character's friend passes out, right? He was like, and the alien is like, I need you conscious. So he grabs the main character's friend, he unties him, and when he starts grabbing him, the friend unexpectedly hits the alien in the face. I mean, he was faking it, right? So he hits him in the face and then in the stomach or whatever. So the alien falls like knocked out, absolutely out of, just passes out, right? And so they capture him. The main character and their friend capture him and run away with the body, right there, unconscious body. So once they are safe in an abandoned house, this alien wakes up and he is dying. And main characters don't know why he is dying, and he says that he's dying because he has been put some sort of chip that would kill him as soon as he feels afraid. And so this is where the main characters realize that this is not the headmaster of the invasion, but it's actually on a higher level. These are just other slaves, and as soon as they fear they die. The reason the actual headmasters put this in their brains was to make them not conceive the idea to rebel against them, because that would make them feel afraid or something until they die, or it was whatever. So, by the way, they call these people, these aliens, manos. The manos, right? Because mano is just hand in Spanish. They call them manos because they have like a lot of fingers. But they never decide why or how. They just start calling them manos. Just, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but everyone knows in the story start calling them manos. Even people that have no contact with the main characters, like everyone suddenly agrees that they are the manos. Why, how, I don't know. The same way they started referring to the color things that manipulate the humans and scarabs and whatever as teledirector. It's a weird word. I mean, I am sure it does exist in Spanish, but it's very specific, right? I mean, it's a valid word for it, but there are many words that you can come up to describe the thing, but everyone just chooses to call them teledirectores. I don't. It's a bit awkward. That's sorry again, sorry. And then they are met with super big creatures like giants. They literally walk past buildings and throw and destroy them like they're what are made of cards. These are colossal beings, monsters, also with a color being controlled by the headmasters and actually by the manos, but it's whatever. And the humans see these things and they are like, oh, okay, this is it. We can't do anything against this, right? It is just impossible. How the hell do we survive this? Of course, this is just easy. They realize that if they shoot the quarters, they stop being hostile. So that's what they do. They shoot one of them with the Kodar fame, so that one starts attacking the other monsters. So easy cake again, right? Then the aliens start like setting the traps to this group. They did try to lead them to some choke points, some streets, like to fall into their traps with more scarabs and robot men that did nothing. So it's like at this point it's unintentionally comic. It's the aliens have no clue how to get rid of a group of 500 civilians in Buenos Aires. It's funny. It's not good. It's not realistic. If the UK invaded Argentina in 1957, actually this story takes place in 1963. It'll be this. I mean, it will be even worse than this. The Argentinians wouldn't have a chance against the in 20th century stuff. Like, yeah, I guess you didn't know the UK did invade Buenos Aires twice. Actually, in the beginning of the 19th century, they took the city in the second invasion, but they were taken out. And it was a smaller force, right? But just imagine that the UK actually invades Buenos Aires with all that they got in their arsenal, everything they got. Of course, Argentina would have no chance of winning, especially not a group of 500 civilians against the takers of the city. It's ridiculous. Why would it made an invasion struggle against them? It's just silly. I don't know. I don't buy it. Then they met another of these Mano. This man who can control the monsters, the robot men, the scarabs, everything. So he surrounds the main characters, the few survivors at some point, and one of Juan's friends has this amazing idea of convincing the Mano that they managed to kill another Mano, right? At first, the Mano doesn't believe them, that he's like, you're bluffing, you cannot kill us, we are very superior, we are more intelligent, whatever. But Juan's friend starts singing the song that the Mano sang when he died in his final moments. So this other Mano finally understood that they were right. So the thought of these humans killing a Mano scared him, so he dies as well. Easy again. So since he dies, all the creatures around them go wrong, but they don't know what to do. Again, everything is easy. The main characters eventually get to the headquarters of the invasion, right? The actual headquarters where maybe the actual headmasters of the invasions are. This is described as a round sort of very artificial building, kind of, that is in the top of a park of the city, and it's like doing some palpitations, right? Like it was a heart or boom, boom, boom. It's weird. It's interesting. The description, I admit it. It's very unique. But when they get there, the main characters start seeing rockets, nuclear missiles coming from the north, and they are being intercepted by the aliens, right? By the Manos. They shoot some beams, and the rockets get disabled. And they just fall without exploding. So the main characters figure that they have to kill these Manos so their bombs then fall. And but this whole place is surrounded by a force field where nothing can get in, except of course for a couple of infantry rockets, right? Because Juan's friend just grabs one and just shoots just the thing, and nothing happens. And she grabs another and shoots again, and then it's gone. The force field is gone. The invaders are dead. Everyone dies. I mean, the bad guys, right? So the good guys realize that the nukes can arrive now, so they instantly start running, and until one nuke falls, and they finally are safe. But I mean, it's just silly, and this made me think. I think this is a bit normal. I think this is a problem, but I mean, I wouldn't call it a problem because this is a characteristic rather than a problem that I think many alien invasion stories had from those decades, right? And that got me thinking. If we compare, remember War of the Worlds, right? That was written in 1898, I think. Maybe not like everybody was in the 19th century after, so it's very old. I think it's the actual first novel about a name invasion, or one of the first. Like if we compare the destruction described in that book with the destruction of the World War I, it's a walk in the park. It's nothing. It's nothing. The destruction in War of the Worlds is cake. but at least the humans still don't stand a chance against the aliens, like they do in Eternauta. But the aliens still are like not very hard to understand in War of the Worlds either. Like, for instance, if you watched the 2005 movie of War of the Worlds, you might remember that the tripods have a force field, classic writing in alien stuff. So the humans can't do anything to them. But in the original story, this is not there. It wasn't necessary, right? Because human technology couldn't even do anything to them, even if they didn't have this force field, so it didn't really matter. So as actual real technology advanced, this story had to be modified in order to make more sense. So they added this force field thing. But I think it's more of a modern thing to make aliens impossible to understand by us, right? Like this thing, like them being this civilization with unimaginably godlike technology that I mean, we now, the average person maybe nowadays, thinks that if an actual civilization comes to us, they will be so much more technologic than us that we couldn't stand a chance if they who are hostile to us. There will be nothing that we can do against it. They might have the technology to wipe all of us without any kind of effort. I mean, without not even seeing us, they wouldn't even arrive. They would just they like push one button and everything is gone. But why wasn't this the common idea back then? And that's what got me thinking. And I think that's because of the way we understand the scale of the universe. It's very different now from 100 years ago. For instance, up until 1923, as far as I know, everyone who is scientists believed that the Milky Way was all there was to it. The entire universe was the Milky Way, right? They could see Andromeda Galaxy. It was discovered 3 centuries ago. You can see it with maybe that even, but they thought that was inside the Milky Way. It wasn't up until 1923, or they managed to tell that Andromeda thing was actually a lot farther than they thought it was. It was actually another galaxy. And not only that, but most people, even most scientists, as far as I know, actually believed that it was very logical to assume that there were other civilizations in our almost solar system. They were so sure that there would be someone in Mars. Maybe they had some doubts about Mercury and Venus, but they were almost sure. There were a lot of theories about how serious theories about how living beings would look like and behave from those planets, and these were from the top scientists of those times. I mean, because saying that we were the only planet with a civilization in this solar system was similar to saying that everything spins around the Earth. It was an anti-Copernican thought, right? We all know how that is seen right now. Like, we are not the center of the universe. We have to assume that there are a lot of things like us, maybe closer than we imagine. So that was the common sense at that time. That if you said that we were the only planet with a civilization in our solar system, you were probably going to be mocked. So that changes things, right? Because if you think about the Navy invasion today, you are almost sure that it will come from another solar system, right? And that distance is unimaginably larger than the distance that there is between Mars and Earth. Not to mention that the distance between Mars and Earth is already beyond our understanding. But I mean, to be honest, most people really don't understand how far the moon is from us. They think it's like close out there, but if you show the actual scale, most people get their brains like out. Most people don't know, for instance, that if you put every single planet from Mercury to Neptune one next to the other, like one by one, touching each other, the distance that they would cover would be smaller than the distance that there is between Earth and the moon. Most people don't know this, but most people do know nowadays that there are no civilizations in our solar systems or the mass. So, and of course, there's YouTube. I mean, why do I know these nerdy things? I mean, I don't know anything. I know sciences, but I watch a lot of YouTube. I read some articles about space stuff. Sometimes it's just a hobby. It's just how I spend time. Sometimes, so I just like me, there are a lot more people that do the same thing. So everyone now knows more about space. We know more about distances than the average person knew 100 years ago. I mean, maybe we know more about that. Maybe a random person nowadays knows more about that than the author of Eternauta. I don't know that. I don't want to say. I don't want to be sure about that because I'm not. But maybe it wouldn't surprise me. So once you understand how far an actual civilization would have to travel to meet us, you will understand that believing that we would have a chance against them is ridiculous. I mean, nobody can understand the distance. That's the thing. The moment you understand that you cannot understand the distance, you will understand that we wouldn't stand a chance against them. That's what I think. Another thing that I didn't like about the story is that it's called El Eternauta, right? From the eternal traveler. So you're like, wow, what will happen, right? I mean, that sounds a bit interesting, but 95 of the story is Juan and this group of soldiers fighting aliens in Buenos Aires in the most unrealistic way. In the last 5% of the story, you get to a part where Juan accidentally gets to one of their spaceships, and it turns out that the spaceship can travel between dimensions, so he gets lost and he wants to get back to his family, and he doesn't know how to do that, so he keeps traveling between dimensions and dimensions and dimensions for a very long time. But he describes this very briefly. You don't actually see a lot of this. It's just spraying in a couple of sentences. There's no depth to this. And the story ends when he explains how he managed to get to 1957, which is like 6 years before the invasion, and he is happy because he gets to see his family again. I don't know. I don't like it. It's not the worst story of all, but it's just, it didn't do it for me. I don't know. That's what I want to say.